Welcome to History with Herodotus, where we embark on a journey through the annals of time, uncovering the secrets of the past and shedding light upon the triumphs and tribulations of human civilization. Today, we find ourselves at the threshold of one of the most pivotal conflicts in ancient history, the Second Punic War, a clash of titans that would shake the foundations of the Mediterranean world. In the 3rd century BC, the Roman Republic, still in its early stages of expansion, found itself face-to-face with a formidable foe, Carthage, a powerful city-state nestled on the coast of North Africa. The seeds of discord between these two nascent powers were sown during the First Punic War, which had ended with Rome emerging victorious, but at great cost. In the aftermath of this conflict, Carthage, under the guidance of the indomitable Hamilcar Barca, began to rebuild and reassess its strategic priorities. Hamilcar, a seasoned military commander, had fought valiantly against the Romans during the First Punic War, and his experiences had left an indelible mark on his psyche. He became convinced that Carthage's future lay not in the Mediterranean, where Roman power was ascendant, but rather in the Iberian Peninsula, a region teeming with natural resources and ripe for conquest. As Hamilcar set about expanding Carthaginian influence in Spain, he was driven by a singular focus: to create a new base of power that would enable his city-state to challenge Roman dominance. His son, Hannibal, would later inherit this vision, and it is here that our narrative begins to take shape. For it was Hannibal, with his unyielding ambition and unwavering dedication to the Carthaginian cause, who would ultimately spark the Second Punic War. The years following the First Punic War saw a gradual escalation of tensions between Rome and Carthage as both powers engaged in a delicate game of diplomatic maneuvering. The Romans, wary of Carthaginian intentions, sought to restrict their rivals' expansionist ambitions, while the Carthaginians, fueled by a desire for revenge and self-preservation, pushed forward with their plans for conquest. In 226 BC, the Ebro Treaty was signed, an agreement that ostensibly established the Ebro River as the boundary between Roman and Carthaginian spheres of influence in Spain. However, this treaty would prove to be little more than a temporary truce, as Hannibal, now at the helm of Carthaginian forces in Spain, began to make plans for a bold and daring campaign that would take him across the Alps and into the very heart of Italy. In the years leading up to the outbreak of hostilities, Hannibal's star continued to rise as he consolidated his power in Spain and began to make preparations for the invasion of Italy. The Romans, meanwhile, remained largely oblivious to the danger lurking on their horizon, confident in their own military prowess and convinced that the Carthaginians would never dare challenge them again. But Hannibal was not one to be underestimated. With a keen strategic mind and an unwavering commitment to his cause, he set about assembling a formidable army, one that would be capable of withstanding the harsh conditions of the Alpine crossing and the fierce resistance of the Roman legions. As Hannibal's army began to take shape, he turned his attention to the treacherous terrain that lay between him and his ultimate goal, the fertile plains of Italy. The Alps, a formidable mountain range that had thwarted countless invaders before him, stood as a significant obstacle, but Hannibal was undeterred. With a deep understanding of the geography and a keen sense of strategic planning, he set about preparing his troops for the arduous journey ahead. In the spring of 218 BC, Hannibal's army, comprising some 30,000 infantry, 12,000 cavalry, and 37 war elephants, began its epic crossing of the Alps. The exact route taken by Hannibal remains a topic of debate among historians, but it is believed that he followed the Isere River valley, using the narrow mountain passes to his advantage. As they climbed higher, the Carthaginians encountered harsh weather conditions, including snow and ice, which took a heavy toll on both men and animals. Despite these challenges, Hannibal pressed on, driven by his unwavering determination to reach Italy. His troops, a diverse mix of Africans, Spaniards, and Gauls, were inspired by their leader's example, and they persevered through the treacherous terrain, often using local guides to navigate the most difficult sections. As they descended into the Po Valley, Hannibal's army was met with a mixture of awe and fear by the local inhabitants, who had never seen such a large and well-organized force before. The first major engagement of the Second Punic War took place on May 28, 218 BC, near the town of Ticinus, where Hannibal's cavalry clashed with a Roman force led by Publius Cornelius Scipio. The Carthaginians emerged victorious, inflicting heavy casualties on the Romans and forcing them to retreat. This initial success set the tone for the rest of the campaign, as Hannibal's army swept through northern Italy, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. As the summer of 218 BC wore on, Hannibal's forces continued to push deeper into Italy, winning a series of decisive battles at Trebia and Lake Trasimene. The Roman legions, led by consuls such as Gaius Flaminius and Gnaeus Servilius Geminus, were repeatedly outmaneuvered and outfought by the Carthaginians, who seemed to possess an uncanny ability to adapt to different terrain and tactics. One of the most significant battles of the war took place on August 2, 216 BC, near the town of Cannae in southern Italy. Hannibal's army, numbering around 40,000 men, faced off against a massive Roman force of over 50,000 troops, led by consuls Lucius Aemilius Paulus and Gaius Terentius Varro. The Carthaginians employed a clever tactic, using their infantry to form a crescent-shaped line that encircled the Romans while their cavalry attacked from the flanks. The result was a catastrophic defeat for the Romans, who suffered staggering losses of over 50,000 men, including many high-ranking officers. As the news of Cannae spread throughout Italy, the Roman people were plunged into despair, and their leaders were forced to regroup and reassess their strategy. Hannibal, meanwhile, continued to press his advantage, marching his army towards Rome itself, in the hope of convincing the city's allies to defect or forcing the Romans to negotiate a peace treaty. However, despite his victories on the battlefield, Hannibal's ultimate goal of capturing Rome remained elusive, as the city's defenses proved too strong and his own supplies began to run low. The war was far from over, and the next few years would see a series of complex and often brutal campaigns, as both sides sought to gain the upper hand. The Romans, under the leadership of Fabius Maximus, adopted a new strategy of delay and attrition, avoiding direct battles with Hannibal's army and instead focusing on harassing their supply lines and attacking their allies. Meanwhile, Hannibal continued to search for a decisive victory, one that would bring him the recognition and support he needed to conquer all of Italy. In 25 BC, Hannibal's brother Hasdrubal led a second Carthaginian army into Italy in an attempt to join forces with his sibling and deliver a crushing blow to the Romans. However, this new threat was met by a Roman force led by Claudius Marcellus, who defeated Hasdrubal at the Battle of Sena Gallica, preventing him from linking up with Hannibal's army. This setback marked a significant turning point in the war, as the Carthaginians began to lose momentum and the Romans gained confidence in their ability to resist the invasion. As the war dragged on, Hannibal's army began to weaken, and the Romans continued to gain ground. In 212 BC, the Roman general Marcus Claudius Marcellus captured the city of Syracuse, a key ally of Carthage, dealing a significant blow to Hannibal's supply lines. Meanwhile, the Roman Senate appointed Fabius Maximus as dictator, who implemented a strategy of cautious yet relentless pressure on Hannibal's forces. As the great Roman historian Livy noted, the Romans were like a sturdy oak tree, which, though shaken by the winds of war, remained unbroken and unbowed. In 207 BC, Hasdrubal, Hannibal's brother, led another Carthaginian army into Italy, hoping to join forces with his sibling. However, he was defeated at the Battle of Metaurus, and his head was sent to Hannibal as a grim warning of the Roman resolve. This decisive victory marked a turning point in the war, as the Romans began to push the Carthaginians out of Italy. In 2003 BC, Hannibal was recalled to Carthage to defend the city against a Roman invasion led by Scipio Africanus, who had been appointed commander-in-chief of the Roman forces. The two generals clashed at the Battle of Zama in 202 BC, which proved to be a decisive defeat for Hannibal and the Carthaginians. As Polybius, the ancient Greek historian, observed, the battle was a masterpiece of tactics, with Scipio's clever deployment of his troops and Hannibal's inability to adapt to the changing circumstances. The Second Punic War finally came to an end in 2001 BC with the signing of the Treaty of Peace, which imposed harsh penalties on Carthage, including a massive indemnity and significant territorial losses. The war had lasted for 17 long years, causing unimaginable destruction and loss of life on both sides. As the Roman historian Silius Italicus later reflected, the war was a trial by fire, which tempered the strength and resilience of the Roman people, forging them into a formidable force that would shape the destiny of the ancient world. Today, the Second Punic War is remembered as one of the most significant conflicts in ancient history, a testament to the strategic genius of Hannibal and the unyielding determination of the Roman people. The legacy of the Second Punic War can still be seen in the modern world, with its impact on international relations, military strategy, and cultural exchange. That's all for today's History with Herodotus. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, remember that to understand the present, we must first understand the past.